most people in our neighborhoods, the men in our neighborhoods don't make as much as the women in our neighborhoods. Statistically, for our communities, that's just how it is. But the thing is, we can't measure ourselves with money. We have to measure ourselves with other things. Like I said, being a father of 6, I love raising all my kids. I love raising them. And by the way, the kind of father I was, my father was probably the inventor of child abuse. Because my father, when we stepped out of line, he would wax that butt. He would wax that butt. And not only that, after a while, he didn't have to hit us. All he had to do was give us a look. And when we got that look, we knew that we better act or better not act a certain way. Because when he gave that look, and he looked at us, he didn't have to say nothing.
Do we have the same father?
There you go, that's it. Right.
I don't know, but my mother was like that. She should be called from under the jail right now.
There you go. And that's the thing, you have to understand that sometimes discipline is not abuse. Discipline is discipline. Even biblical. And I'm going to try not to go into the Bible too much, even though I'm a reverend. I'm going to try not to go into the Bible too much. But biblically, it says if you hold the rod, you spoil the child. There's always a time where someone has to be checked. You want to be checked when you're wrong anyway. And so when dad will give us that look, we'll jump in line. Mom will give us that look, we'll jump in line. The way we're raised and what it did was it raised us to be solid people, solid individuals. Homes without fathers. And there's a lot of homes that we have without fathers. And the problem is we have to have a father figure, but we have to have the right type of father figure in our lives. Because there's so many wayward kids and people and men, right? And so father figures and the homes without the father figures, those homes statistically have higher crime rates in those homes. It has more kids going to jail. Do you know that they have a system and a study that they know by 2nd and 3rd grade how many jails they're going to need when the kids are 18 years old? They can tell by their behavior. And one of the things that happen is 80% of those kids that they know are going to prison are 80% of homes without fathers or father figures. It's better to have a bad father figure in the home than no father figure in the home. Right? Like I said, some people would say, hey, you know, your dad was pretty rough on you, because like I said, my dad was rough. My dad was rough. You know, you mess with George. My father was 6'2", 300-something pounds. He was a black belt. Everybody in the neighborhood feared him, but at the same time, we shared him. Right? We feared him, but we shared him because none of the kids in our neighborhood had fathers. And everybody came to my house and called my father their father. And my father was just as rough on them as he was on us. And guess what? At that time, there was not one parent would say, wait a minute, you yelled at my son? Or wait a minute, you whooped my son? Don't you know when I grew up, if I was down the street doing something wrong and Miss Hattie hit me, when I got home, I would get a killing there too. She said, wait, my dad said, what? She had to hit you? Wow, right? That only happened to me like once or twice. My brothers, man, he used to get all, he'll go 4 blocks away. He'll go to another part of Brooklyn, right? And he'll come home, and my mom would have known what he did. And they said, boy, his name Leon. They said, Leon, you gonna get it. And Leon would get a beat. Right? But because of that discipline, though, because, you know, it was done from love. And when a father or mother says to you, this is gonna hurt me more than it's gonna hurt you, they mean it. Because it hurts when I have to whoop those guys. I hated it. My girls, when I had to whoop them, I would go and close the door. I would cry longer than they did. But they would never see me cry. But I just like, you know, I hate to do this. But they grew up, and because of that, the 6 kids, and I'm not bragging, but from the 6, my oldest son is a preacher in California who has a family. He has a family with 2 lovable kids. the one under him became an award-winning filmmaker and a martial arts sensei. He made it into the Martial Arts Hall of Fame. You know, but all this come from that hard discipline. None of them really went wayward per se, and I think that have a lot to do with the fact that I emulated my dad. We were not going to have talkbacks. You cannot. The kids today, the talk back, the disrespect that the young boys give to anybody older than them, it's amazing. The way they speak to each other, the names that they call in terms of endearment, all that negative. And how can we combat that negative as people who have already went through it? Older people, right? We're the ones, we led the way, and this is what we got under us. How can we turn that time? What can we do? Well, one thing is we have to remember the father. We have to remember our dad. If you can think back and just in your head, get an image of maybe one of the happiest times you have with your dad or your father figure. Mine is my father. I used to race my father all the time when I was little. When I raced him, he used to run backwards and beat me. That was a great, he was just, I could not beat him no matter what. And then when I got older and I realized that I could beat him, when I would race him, I would never win on purpose. So we have to remember these times. Remember our dads and remember the dads before them. We have come through a lot. We have come through a lot. But our fathers have went through even more. And what we want to do is just for the young men that we have in our lives, our grandsons, our sons, our grandsons. And if it's too late for our sons, because, sometimes it's too late for us to change our sons. But we can take care of our grandsons, make sure they know they got a lot of love, let them know what they're up against, right? Because we're up against a lot in our neighborhoods. Let them know. But let them know through love that they always have a place to go and always a place to talk to, because what's really important, men, we need to be able to talk to people, anybody, about how we truly feel. If we can't talk to you, we can't talk to our mothers, we can't talk to our sisters, if we don't have a place to go, then we're going to go back to the bottle. We're going to go back to destructive behavior. We're going to go back to depression, anxiety, all those things. So we just want to be able to tell our young people that you can talk to us. And it have to be a judgment-free zone, no matter what they say. Judgment-free. Judgment-free means we're not going to one thing they're going to say to us is going to get us mad or get us to judge them or tell them how they should have done this. We just have to listen. Sometimes people pay thousands and thousands of dollars to therapists when all they need is an ear. People die and kill and hurt, then all they need is an ear. When you see people acting up, when you see them in the subways or we see them at the corner, they're acting a certain way, all they need is an ear. Especially when you see the men and they're talking and yelling to themselves. It's all we need is an ear. Sometimes you have to listen to what they're even yelling about, what they're saying, because sometimes it don't make sense to anybody, but when you listen, you realize, wait a minute, I've been through that too. I'm going to tell you one quick story too. Everybody heard of Mel, right?
Yeah.
Mel. One time was accused of anti-Semitic behavior. He was his films have now went down. He did a film called was the first independent film that ever made $1 billion.
Excuse me. Thank you.
And now, somebody you would expect would have a whole lot of respect in the industry and be treated well, right? But what happened to me that night that is not in the papers and stuff is because I know a few people who know, and I heard explaining himself. In film, he put his own money in the. He put $50 million in. His movie made $1 billion. The studios never gave him a dime. That's how he was treated. He was treated like that because of who he is associated with or not associated with. We have to think, we have to know. And so then later on that night, he went to an arbitration where he had his attorneys and the studio attorneys, and he's standing there and he's arguing with them. One of the things he's talking about is family and stuff too, because he put $50 million in the movie. He didn't have the $50 million, and his lifestyle started to go down. You got to understand, when you have that kind of money, you live a certain lifestyle. If you don't have that kind of money, you can't continue to live that kind of lifestyle. So he's arguing with the studios, and the studios say, you know what? You'll get your $50 million back. That's all you get. The film was the first film to ever make nearly $1 billion. That's all you're getting. He left there and he joined the Bacardi Club. He got drunk, and when he was picked up in a car driving drunk, he was saying some anti-Semitic things about people who, for him, had taken his money and not giving it to him, not giving it back. We have to understand that sometimes, now the other thing is, he can't talk about that anymore. He can't talk about it. If he talk about it, he's going to get in trouble. But the thing is, I can talk about it because I'm not, right? But the thing is, you have to know, sometimes we don't know what's bothering somebody. They could have lost their entire fortunes. We don't know that. They could have lost the love of their lives. We don't know that. How many men do you know who have walked around with broken hearts? And them broken hearts don't just come because of a wife leaving, or broken hearts come for a whole lot of things. Come from a mother passing on, a child, a wayward child. I once watched a man who we know lived in the community for years. He had a son that grew up, and his son was on crack and drugs, right, and all that kind of stuff. And we watched as the man begged his son to please change. He didn't want his son in his business. His son would come in and eat and chase away all the customers. He said, you can't come here anymore. If you come here, my customers are going to be running. Because he don't come and be quiet. He come and make noise and got to be heard and got to be seen. So this Father's Day, I just want us to remember all the fathers. Remember the father. Remember your dad. Remember your father figure. Remember the man in your life who was positive, who left that positive impression. Like I said, I love running backwards with my dad. That's one of the biggest things I remember. I remember him looking at me with that look when I was out of line. And that's what we got to remember. Let's pass it on, and let's take our grandkids, our kids, and our grandkids. Let's pass on that love to them. Let them know that they are great. Greatness doesn't come because we just happen to fall into it. We are groomed into greatness. People have told us my greatness comes from my mother. My mother said to me once, she said, you have a silver spoon in your mouth. And you know, everything I do now, I always hear that in the back of my mind. My mother always talked about how nice I was. When I do things, I'm always hearing that in the back of my mind. So you ladies have more influence on us than anybody in the world. Thank you for listening. I thank you for allowing me to speak. And like I said, and my brother and ladies, happy Father's Day is not just to us, but to everyone, because being a father is not a job that's done by itself. It has to be done with our mates, our mothers, our aunts, our friends, and our entire village. So happy Father's Day to everybody.